Hey, this is Gene. Just want to talk a little bit what happened, my thoughts today. Just really quickly, uh, I follow soccer overseas, football, what they call football over there, even though they don't understand where soccer, the origination of that name came from. Um, there are a lot of people that large followings on YouTube or on Twitter saying that we should now not have the World Cup in America. They forget that the World Cup is going to be not only just in America, but Mexico and Canada. Um, I'm just like, we just can't have it now because we just saw what we saw. Now, obviously, what we saw yesterday was horrific, uh, and we do have a problem with gun violence in this country, but it's also a country that's probably about 400 million people in it when you have to take in all the illegals that we have. Um, and that's not going to happen. It's not like these people have any influence that they're going to all of a sudden lose. We're going to lose getting the World Cup here. How much money that would lose? Um, that's not going to happen because there's too much money that's already been involved with this, and we've had issues at different sporting events over history that next time they showed up, they didn't show back up to Germany, like when we had those Israeli athletes that were killed in '72. But so I just don't feel good today. My wife gave me something that she got from school from the kids. She's been dealing it now for probably 2 weeks, and I'm dealing it now. Um, I don't think it's COVID. It's similar, you know. When I first got a COVID, the first time I had COVID, uh, the, the 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 throat was just 10 times worse than this one is, but it's similar in a lot of ways. But apparently, it's everywhere now, and we're just dealing with it. So, what do we do now? This weekend or this week, we've got some of the most horrific images ever. Seeing a young, attractive white girl being killed by, I don't know, evil, and no one helping her. And then when you actually see the close up video of Charlie getting killed, it's disgustingly horrific. It's so much that I didn't believe it was true. When I was posting it yesterday, I was hoping to God that was a CGI or something, the way it was, how much blood that flew out of him. So we have two very horrific images. And guess what today is? September 11th. 24 years ago, 3,000 Americans or so were killed by terrorist attacks. And we still don't really know who financed all that. We know who actually committed it, but where that money actually came from, or whether or not certain agencies knew that it was coming and didn't say anything and allowed it to happen, I don't. I've never bought into the idea that it was an inside job. Certainly not. President Bush wouldn't have the ability to do anything like that, or Rumsfeld, or Cheney. These people I met, I just no, no. Especially Rumsfeld, little fucking small dude that had a big chip on his shoulder because he's 5'2", and he had to be bigger in the room than everybody else. Um, it's funny when he stands up and I'm 6'2", 6'3", when I was in the military. I probably lost an inch as I got out, and I'm just towering over the man. But anyway, um, what do we do with it? You know, I the nastiness of our fellow uh, fellow countrymen have been evident as well. People saying he basically deserved it because of some of the things he said. Um, what's the motivation behind it? On the fact that somebody was upset about saying things, it's clearly looked like it's a hit. It looks very professional to me. The shot was perfectly executed, but I've heard now that maybe he had armor, and it was actually a shot that was in his heart, and it blew off there, and it went up and into his jugular. I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. We don't know enough, but something's. I mean, something has to wake us up. It's like in 2 days we had. Well, we knew about the other girl for a little bit, but it blew up on Monday this week, all over mainstream media. And then on Wednesday we have what happened to Charlie. And today is September 11th. I mean, it's craziness, and you know how this works, especially when it comes to Charlie Kirk being killed. People like to use things and use numbers and all that stuff to remind who actually is in charge. And again, I'm not saying that Mossad was behind this or anything like that, but you know, I've heard this morning. Excuse me. I listened to the. I was up at like 3 o'clock this morning, and not. I mean, I want to tell you this. I've seen a lot of shit. Okay, and this is just a little bit into my life. Okay, I'm 19 years old. I just came back. I went through boot camp, and I went to my first day station over in overseas. I was at Rhine Mine. This happened first, but I I went, came back, and I went out hang out with my friend, and my friend who I just was saying shit on Facebook because he's one of these crazy ass leftists, and he said he put something out there, and then later on he came back and did something else, and he's like, well, even though he didn't say anything about when the girl died, he had a picture of the girl and Charlie Kirk, and so no matter what they say, we got to do everything right. We can't, and we're going to kill the person that did it. Okay, but before that, he was amplifying what Occupy the Democrats were saying, that uh, what Charlie Kirk talked about the Second Amendment, that basically he died by the words he said. So, you know, whatever. But this guy was my friend when I was 19, 20, and we went to go. We went fishing, is what it was. It was a canal near his house, and we saw something in the water, and it was almost like a mannequin, and we're like, oh, it's not real. And you know, I waded out to her, and it was a Asian girl, probably about 5 foot, dead, bloated. What happens when that happens? Um, and you know, that's a shocking thing. And then, not that much after that, we had the whole car car thing in Libya that killed like 280 of our people, and a lot of the bodies had to be examined up in Rand Mine. Now I didn't have to do it, but I was around it, right, and you could smell it. So, and then we had a terrorist bomb at our base, same area. Now I never went into combat. I will never claim that I am some sort of war hero because I'm not. I served. Um, And if I had been called, I definitely would have gone. And a couple times I was going to do something, but we never really in a war during the time I served. Nothing that was on the ground, you know, as an Air Force guy. So, but I've seen things. All right, I've seen Intel stuff. I worked in Intel space stuff, and I've seen things come over the wire, pictures, people's IEDs blowing up and all that shit. And I have never seen what I saw from that. And we're at real time seeing his jugular just blow up like that. I've never seen that. I've never seen any movie like that. You know, I'm thinking of all the movies, and I've watched so many horror movies. I've never seen the blood do that. Now you do see it spurts out, right? But that was so visual and so quick and so thick. I just couldn't believe it. I could not believe that that's actually what happened. You know. But anyway, what at this point, what do you do? You know, are we gonna? Is our first instinct to strike back and say, put on put on social media, this is war now against liberalism or the left, whatever that means? I don't consider myself right or left. I believe in right and wrong. I believe in good and evil. What Charlie stood for was people I believe. Again, he was very soft on Israel for a while, but he actually started waking up. And that's why I was very upset with Nick yesterday, before all this happened, how he was talking to Mac Walsh about stuff. But Charlie Cook is probably at the same level as far as Matt Walsh was when it comes to Israel. He doesn't, these guys do not support what the government of Israel is doing, but they're called by that we have to support Israel, the form of Israel, the one that God talks about, not the government of Israel. And he made this. I mean, it's all coming out right now. All this stuff is coming out because you got the conspiratorial people thinking that it's Mossad doing it because he was taking a stance against the government of Israel. That he went on to I can't even say the guy's the Greek dude, the Iranian guy actually, Bet David. He went on his show. This was a year ago or so, and he said, "Did somebody call down their defenses?" Because he said, "I've been there." I said, "It's so guarded. This should never have happened." And he was asking these questions, but he still would defend the idea of Israel and what it means because you're supposed to support Israel. If you don't, you're kind of screwed according to the Bible. So, but no one that it's not the government of Israel. All right. So this is a man that had his values, and he wore it on his sleeve, and he, especially this last 2 or 3 years of his life, he was a big brother for a lot of guys on campuses. He clearly was, because a lot of these guys that, even though they might have had fathers in their homes, because for the most part, those type of colleges are still dominated by white people, and a lot of them might have had a full nuclear family, but it doesn't mean that the father and the mother aren't just rageous leftists, right? So we just don't know. And so these guys have been indoctrinated since they've been in elementary school, and under the the equity and the feminism and all that shit, and women are oppressed, and black people can't do anything for themselves, and all this shit, and they've been indoctrinated, and at some point in that process, guys just they go, oh, fuck it, it is what it is, and they end up believing it, because you would see the first 2 or 3 years of him talking to campuses, there were a lot of men that were just what I would call manginas or male feminists, and just sitting there just yelling at Charlie Cook or Steven Crowder when we were just bringing up conservative viewpoints, really. But it changed. And it changed because guys of him, like him, that went on the campuses and just continually, respectfully gave him his worldview. And he said the best thing you could always do is just trust in Jesus. And he said if you do that, what you need, it'll come to you. It just by being reborn, it will come to you. And this is all he really did. He wasn't really a preacher on campus, but when the opportunity allowed it, he would sermon those people. He would witness those people. And there are so many young men that do not have a male mentor in their life, even in a nuclear family where the father is not attentive because he's doing his thing, trying to make sure that everything's fine, and he's got to make all the money to send my kids to college and all that shit, and he's not at home and able to actually mentor him father to son. And you got this big brother guy, and he has a weird face, but he bagged a beautiful woman. And again, that helps. He's got money and shit, but she clearly loved him. They had 2 babies, beautiful babies. And on a human level, nobody should be saying anything against the guy. You can't sit there and say, well, I didn't like him, but this shouldn't happen. Or this is what happens when you say things like this. My son even said something so stupid. Sometimes that happens, he says. Because he'd said all along that he's like, it's not fair that he goes on college campuses because those guys can't debate him. I'm like, they're adults, Ryan, just like you. Couldn't you debate him? I mean, you always try to debate me. You think they're so intellectually superior to me. Then go ahead and debate Charlie Cook. And the thing is, his truth is true, right? You can talk about his ideology. You might have an issue about foreign policy, but he's 100% true when it comes to abortion. When you have when you actually have conception, you have a different strand of DNA, and then that becomes a human. That's biologically science. There's no this idea that we go through different things and say, well, a fetus is this, and that they can't live outside the room and all that shit. No, it's still a potential human, that they would never do that if it was a dog or another type of animal. But because it's a human, we have to do this, and it's all masked under the whole thing of women's rights, and it's not. What about the baby inside? But anyway, factually, scientifically, he was correct there. And as far as his views when it comes to religion or Jesus, he was like a lot of people are now. He says religion is a man thing, right? He said just follow Jesus Christ in what he said. And if you do that, you will be rewarded. Obviously, the biggest gift is being with Jesus at the end of time. But somebody said the other day that, well, he's with God now, and that's what he always wanted anyway. And I said, well, I'm sure that there's under his belief system, he will be in no pain and all that stuff. But clearly, this is a man that would have been a great father. Could you imagine all the shit that he's not going to see now? Because whatever the reason is, if this person is a professional killer, well, there was no motivation other than get the money to do it. If it's some sort of young, radicalized leftist that just didn't like him because he was against the trans community, or he didn't think women should be able to murder their babies in the womb, or what, he was a milquetoast conservative Republican that actually invoked God and what he was talking about. And he did what you're supposed to do as men. You're supposed to go and lead other men. That which we're called to do that, and to protect women and to make sure that the species goes on. We're called by God as stewards of this country, of this world, and we were the first. We're the first. The most responsible is us, and that's all that the man was doing. And he's a fucking rock star. He was a rock star. I said in my video yesterday, I'm just sitting there watching Twitter, and he's throwing shit out to people. I'm like, damn, I'd like to be there. I'd like to get those hats. Now, I don't walk it around here. I've got MAGA hats and stuff, but I will not ever walk it around with that. I don't want any issues. It's bad on me. I mean, I wear my military stuff. No one gives me any shit around here because there's a lot of military guys here. But it's just a lot of people don't mind. I probably counted around 100 that basically said he got exactly what he deserved. And I'm just like, wow, what is wrong with people? I don't get it. So all I did when these guys are saying this stuff and friends are posting stuff, I said, all we can do at this point is do what he did. He was a true man of God, and they're so rare. I mean, everything he did was for the glory of God, and it gave him everything. He gave him a beautiful wife, beautiful kids. He made his company be the most influential thing on campuses that clearly swing the election for Donald Trump this time. It did. And I think that was part of the issue. I think there are 3 or 4 issues of why they killed him. I don't think it's going to be a random thing. Now, again, we might get the guy, and we'll find his thing, and who knows? But I think that because they knew that he was the man. He was the up-and-comer. He was I'm not going to say he was Kennedy and stuff like that, but he kind of was. He kind of fucking was. I mean, again, he didn't look like Kennedy, right? But Charlie's wife is 10 times hotter than Jackie was. I'm just sorry. It's not even close. But he had 2 kids, and I could see it right fucking now. Of course, I'd have been like 70 at that time, but I just can see it. I can see. I'm not saying that J.D. Vance is going to win next whatever, but I could definitely see Charlie Cook running in 2020 or 2032, and he would have been what? He's 31 now, and he'd have been 38. He would have been the youngest president of all time, and his kids would have been what, 10, 11. I mean, that would have been that whole America's back, beautiful family, kids running around in the White House. I could have seen that. I don't know sure if he was going to do it or not. I think his vocation was more biblical than it was anything else. And obviously he did everything he could to get Trump in. And he's talked about Trump too. He says he's a flawed man. That everybody's flawed. Charlie was flawed, but he had just because he had a different opinion. And again, we're talking about milk coast Republican differences. He was talking about abortion for a long time. I can't believe that could be the reason why somebody killed him. Just putting God in the message, if that is what did it, but I don't think that's what it is. I think this was the state, whatever that state, stopping the rise of the conservative white male the rise of the white male in the Republican Party, because people are still so concerned that if white men get together, that it's over for other things. Let's just say. I just wish both him and Matt would eventually, at some point, would have brought Nick in and just have this conversation and get things together, because Nick can galvanize people, and Nick has moved them, and they believe pretty much 80% of what Nick believes, and that to me is a good starting point to what we need to do. And those guys are a little better when it comes to leading at this point. Nick is too young, too emotional, almost, the whole thing of just spurging out online, because that's how he grew up, right? This is a young man he was edgelord when he was 15, 16, 17. And he just shock value and all that. And then now he's become more mature, but he still goes back into that. He still reverts back to that. So I just hope, Matt Walsh says that, but we got to stop with the infighting on the right. Okay, then Matt, you got to let Nick in. You got to do this. Because you and Nick are next. Not that Matt would ever run for office, but he's been stepping on toes. Again, another milk coast Republican that happens to be Catholic. But he talks about Jesus. He talks about Bible. Same with Nick. Same as Charlie. These people should be friends. They should be, just because one of them is more pro-Israel than the other. You can have Nick in the room and say, have you thought about this? Because whenever you talk to Nick, he is always respectful. But sometimes when he gets online, he gets a little bit crazy. And I don't really know what this video is going to do, because I've been talking for 23 minutes. And I don't know what's next. And it's my throat is not doing great. But I mean, I'm sitting here and it looks like nothing happened. And it's everywhere, right? And if I turn on anything, it's going to be about this. And it's just like I said yesterday, the narrative has changed so much. We're not talking about the young Ukrainian girl anymore. And we also have September 11th, so we're talking about that as well. I don't know what we have to find the guy, right? Just like the fact that they found the gun and they got the palm print. Isn't that like with Lee Harvey? I mean, it's just those are images that will never leave my mind as long as I'm alive. And as a man of faith, I hope to God that Charlie is doing well, and this young girl that was killed is doing well. And I got this image in my mind that when it comes down, the end times come, that you're going to see the horses flying in the air coming down, and Charlie's going to be right there with God, with Jesus and stuff. I mean, I don't know. I think that might be. I mean, this guy was a warrior for God. Who would have given you anything? There was no doubt in my mind, if I was in trouble and he was in the room, that he would have done something. He would have got somebody to help me, or he would have came over and helped me as well. We have so few young men like that. You know, he's young. He's 31. Um, and that we knew us to aspire to that. We can listen to Nick, and Nick is all good and all that stuff, and he's pushed everybody truthfully to the right solution, let's say. But you also have to have guys like him that can actually bring more and more people in, because he believed what the founding documents believed. He believed that it was all biblical in nature. He believed that by being that way, he knew. I mean, all the reports saying he was not fearful, but he knew that he was a target. He didn't look fearful when he was throwing out the hats. I think he really loved going on campuses and talking to these guys. I think he really did, and I think it did something for him as well. It's just a horrible day, a horrible week. I just hope that as a country we learn from it. I don't know what's next. I'm trying to just relax about all of it and not looking at everybody and saying there's somebody that's going to do something. But anyway, I'm just going to let it go at that point. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. How do you feel today? It's September 11th. I know a lot of things about September 11th. I worked that day. I knew a lot of shit. I'll just let you tell you this. It was not an inside job. I'll just tell you that. And all the buildings that were hit and all the planes were all real planes. It wasn't some false flag or anything like that. All that's true, right? There was no, we just got caught with our fucking pants down. The issue that you might look at whoever actually financed it and who actually had intel on it and didn't really tell us. And that's where you should go and look for. There's a reason why those towers came down. It's because you can't have all that jet fuel just going through the inside of the hollow interior of that stuff. It will continually, it'll always go down. Anyway, we'll talk to you guys later. Tomorrow maybe, or Saturday, I'll talk about Manchester United, get past this stuff and stuff that's not that important when it comes to soccer, football, whatever. And I'll tell you who I think will start on Sunday and what I think the score will be. But anyway, thank you for watching, and you guys have a good day.